if we listen to the consultants and all these analysts, they're going to tell us that we suck at our job and they know how to do our job better. But the fact is they don't know. They're not in the field. They're not a middle manager. They don't know what's going on. Maybe they were a CPO for 10 years before they became a consultant, so they're even more out of touch. So own your role, act as if, find a network, and find a mentor.
Thanks so much for joining this week on the never-ending climb to a stronger supply chain and stronger procurement for companies running SAP. We have a special guest, Katie McEwen, the Procurement Girl. Katie has been supporting the buy side and the sell side, but really, I know she's a cheerleader and a coach for those folks that are in procurement. And she also spends time helping organizations that are selling into procurement, say new technology companies. And Katie, in your career, I know that you have helped so many people and you show up with this energy, this passion, and this spirit to help folks. I have to imagine that through your career, you've learned some things that if you could go back, N years, and just tell, a younger Katie that was getting started, some of the things that you know now that you wish you knew then, what advice would you have for, a younger you or other folks in the procurement space?
First off, thank you so much for having me, Sean. I love what you're doing. I love this show. It's so cool. The first thing that I would say is act as if and own your role. It's important to know your category inside and out. A lot of people think that, switching categories and trying to constantly, rise up the ranks of procurement is the end goal. But there is so much opportunity in being a specialist in a specific category and really owning that zone. You become invaluable to the organization. And if you ever want to leave that organization, most people won't be able to top the experience that you have with those specific sets of suppliers within that specific category. So really owning your role. And as you're doing that, a lot of people would say, well, what about the title? What about the pay raise? Well, it's 2023 and you can build whatever career that you want. And so many people out there don't understand what procurement is. They don't know how the function works. They don't know all the complexities. They don't know how to sell to it. They don't know how to support it. They don't know how to market it. And you can become a thought leader in the space. And what I've seen recently is there is an explosion of procurement professionals who are full-time practitioners. But on the side, they're writing, they're creating content, they're meeting with fellow procurement professionals, teaching them what they've learned. They're sharing their stories, they're sharing their legacy. And it's having a great impact on young procurement professionals, because my fear is that what we're going to see is a lot of people leaving procurement just because of the frustration with bad tech and lack of processes and lack of encouragement and support. And the hard truth is, as a procurement professional, you're not going to get the pat on the back. You're not going to get the praise that maybe you would with sales or marketing or something like that. So you have to build a network, build your own brand so you can be celebrated in different ways. Social media, having a group that meets for lunch, every couple of weeks, and you share your wins with other procurement professionals. Not only is that going to encourage you, but it's also going to help you articulate and celebrate those wins. We get so lost in, we're missing the mark on cost savings. We're missing the mark on risk. We're missing the mark on sustainability. And if we listen to the consultants and all these analysts, they're going to tell us that we suck at our job and they know how to do our job better. But the fact is they don't know. They're not in the field. They're not a middle manager. They don't know what's going on. Maybe they were a CPO for 10 years before they became a consultant. So they're even more out of touch. So own your role, act as if, find a network, and find a mentor. I built this whole thing by being honest about my ignorance. And I believe that has been my secret weapon, because I never go into conversations with procurement or anybody in supply chain and act like I know what the best thing is for them. their organization is way too complex. I would have to spend years within that organization to be able to provide that sort of advice. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of these, software companies that to provide services, to go above and beyond just providing the tech and, putting out their hands, because it's beneficial for both sides to roll your sleeves up and get in the muck and the gunk with the procurement professional and learn how they can get the most value out of the tool. Because these monolith legacy giants aren't going to do that. So yes, I think that there is a lot of opportunity for procurement. But if we keep speaking the same script about it not being a value add, of its limited capacity, that we're constantly in chains and red tape and bureaucracy, we're going to lose Gen Z and Gen Y. I don't know, I'm getting them all mixed up now. But we're going to lose them because they're not going to put up with that crap, and if this continues to happen, my fear is procurement's going to get absorbed into the CFO role, and we're going to have financial analysts going out there doing our buying and negotiating. And none of us want that. So yeah, it's all about passing down your legacy, sharing those stories, and building that network.
What I love about that, Katie, is that it comes from a position of the default position of vulnerability of help me understand. And I've seen that as one of the most important ingredients in effective procurement analysts and category specialists and those roles that really seek to understand what problem are they solving and what's really going to deliver the value. I shared in another episode of the story of this category manager that ground the supplier so hard that when he was visiting in town, the supplier was too busy to meet with him. And he was proud of this. And I just was boggled because it makes no sense, right? It's exactly the kind of thing that gives procurement a bad name, or by extension, like the policy checklist of if thou has section 42 of this, that, and the other thing, then, some auditor is going to come and slap you on the wrist and cancel the whole thing later. Finding that middle ground to go and help and to serve and creating the time and the space for that service to be rendered to the business, like that vulnerability, that spirit that you bring is so important. And I love the way that you show up online and encourage people to do that. I think about how a young category specialist that's just getting started can hear what you shared and find those tips of go find a mentor and go remember to ask the question and don't show up like you know it all. And I think we've all had folks that we've worked with that have come into the team and they'll tell you how it's going to go, and that usually creates a sort of tension that makes people not want to partner with procurement. So I want to thank you for shining that light and being that lighthouse of helping people see how you can do that. You mentioned these kind of consultants and analysts, and I was thinking about, as a category manager, as a sourcing leader, when you're hearing people come in and tell you about the way things are supposed to be, or you're reading the latest, industry analyst report of these are the top themes for 2023, and sometimes you kind of want to appreciate it and you kind of want to laugh, and some analysts more tell it like it is, and some analysts you kind of go, who paid for that report? But when you're trying to make sense of that, what advice do you have around helping those category leaders make sense of the consultants, the analysts, the LinkedIn post that they scrolled past that said, here's the 2 things that you have to do? Because it's never that simple. What would you want to share with folks to help them sift and sort through this?
Well, everyone's an expert, right? And everybody is so quick to get advice, especially if they know nothing about it. The best thing about procurement is everybody wants to tell you how to do your job better. It's the struggle is real. The thing, their advice and their, these are the top 3 trends that you're going to see in 2023 are tied to their own initiatives. And maybe it's getting older, I don't know, but I trust people less and less, and I think it's maybe it's age, I don't know. It just seems a little bit more transparent now. When they just partnered with an ESG provider and yet they're saying ESG is the top priority in 2023. Is it because of what you're seeing in the market? Are you talking about North America? Are you talking about the UK? Because we're kind of talking about two different things here. I called that out on LinkedIn not that long ago and got my hand slapped a couple of times. But truth is powerful, and we have to understand, are we being given advice to create leverage for that organization giving the advice, or are we truly being given advice that we need and use? And it's difficult for procurement, who's drowning in spreadsheets and emails, to think about all of these initiatives that are really just tied to large, mature procurement organizations who are well established in the space. It takes time to get there. But are you really going to tell a lone wolf procurement professional in the mid-market that they need to be worried about these initiatives when they're just trying to get their invoices in order and try to stop faxing POs? I mean, who are you speaking to? Who is your audience? Are you really trying to help procurement professionals, or are you just trying to prop up your own game?
I think that sifting and sorting between what the theme du jour is and something that's really going to help. I mean, there's a lot of solutions out there that are whiz bang fancy and new, but a lot of procurement organizations are still getting past emailing POs. And there's even more that are still just trying to wrestle organizations into getting a PO before the invoice. And it kind of hurts when you hear about an organization that was planning on building custom applications to make it easier to get the invoice to get the PO after you got the invoice. You kind of go, no, that's so backwards. So the maturity of a lot of the organizations out there is just early. It's not necessarily ready for some of the really advanced stuff that is really cool. But I think there's a lot of folks that are still stuck in that feeling of, oh my God, I'm still just barely holding it together. And I think that's one of the things that we keep seeing and hearing, and you can feel it when you're talking to procurement professionals of they're just barely holding it together. But it's not necessarily safe in their organization to say help. So that meme, right, of like procurement professional, you've got young Jack Nicholson, and then year one, right, or month one, and then year three you've got like him with an axe in his hand from his hair going all sideways. That visual is just so true for so many people out there. And I know there's somebody watching right now that's just feeling it right here, and it's hitting too close to home. What advice do you have for those folks when they feel like the underdog and they feel underappreciated? Because this is something that, as you're building out those peer groups and you're talking to people in other organizations and you're catching things, you're not getting, it's the caught not taught. Where would you want to encourage folks like that to look? And when you're talking to a procurement specialist, procurement leader that's just trying to hold on, and they need help, they want help, but they barely feel like they've got time to lift up out of the fires, what advice do you have for them to help them be their best selves?
Celebrate your own wins. Document what you're doing. It may not be appreciated or noticed by leadership. I was just telling someone the other day, everyone said that when COVID hit, procurement and supply chain hit center stage. And yeah, people started to notice, but we still have to push. And it's not, I think they forgot. I think the world forgot how important procurement and supply chain is. Based on the pros I talked to, it's keeping their team motivated right now is extremely difficult. Bad tech, lack of resources, lack of leadership support. And they don't have the time to network. They don't have time to build a community or find a mentor. They're just going from one fire to the next. But when you spend time counseling a team member before they go crush it on a negotiation call, write that down, tell that story, and review those wins. It's important for us to remind ourselves of our why and why we're doing it, and thinking about the overall impact of procurement. One thing I love about procurement professionals is there's not, just in my experience, I'm sure a lot of people would argue with this, but there's not a lot of ego associated with it. A lot of people that would go into procurement aren't doing it for fame and acclaim. They're going into it because they want to learn about business, and that's the right attitude. You will learn more in procurement than any college or university. You'll learn about business, supplier relationships, negotiating, and you will talk about the market. You'll learn and be able to have conversations with people about things that you couldn't under any other function within the organization. So reminding yourselves of the why, celebrating the wins, even if you're a lone wolf procurement professional and you're all by yourself. It's important to document those things and to be able to articulate your value and have that on the tip of your tongue, because you never really know when you're going to have the opportunity to really articulate everything that you're doing within the function.
What I love about what you said there is the way you brought it back to that sense of mindset. And it reminded me of this concept of the gain, not the gap, right? And it comes down to the way that you look at something, and you can look at it and go, man, we're underfunded, understaffed. And, I was working from 7 till 7 and my cell phone rang, and again at 11:30 for another fire and another emergency. And you feel like you're just barely catching up. But when you mentally stay focused and keep your mind on how far you've come and on the value that you've added, that sense of gratitude has space to come into the thought process, and that can make so much difference.
Yeah,
So
what's the pain doing for your career?
Right.
Going through the trenches, going through these struggles, like, what is that doing for your career? What is that doing for your mindset? It's going to change how you react to things. It's going to change your emotional intelligence. Just like that meme that you brought up. Yeah, like Jack Nicholson looks a lot different, 2 years and 2 months and 6 days later. He's all gray and scary. But think about that wisdom that he has. Think about that expertise. He's learned about every point of the business. He understands the organization. He knows what drives the market. He knows about innovation and technology and the power of relationships. You can't get that anywhere else.
That's a beautiful thing. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today. And for everybody watching, I know Katie is a coach for the buy side and for the sell side. So please feel free to reach out to her. She's been tremendously helpful to several folks that I know and think very, very highly of. So thanks very much, Katie, for joining us today. And hope we'll see you next week. Never ending climb for a stronger supply chain and procurement on SAP. Thank you so much.